Hey, Big Train fans. Welcome to our 2020 virtual baseball and holiday auction.
I miss seeing all of you at Povich Field this summer, but I'm excited for our Big Train family to come together tonight.
Over the next hour, you'll hear from a fantastic guest speaker, stars from our 2019 championship team, and Big Train staff members and awardees.
Plus, we'll keep you updated on the week's auction items, which you can learn more about just by clicking on the link below. But so just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show and bid more and more.
Welcome, Big Train fans. I'm Bruce Adams. John Orsman and I founded the Bethesda Community Baseball Club in 1998 with a goal of providing local baseball fans with family fun at affordable prices right near home. Part of the fun back in the day was an annual Big Train baseball and holiday auction to bring the Big Train family together in the off-season. We're not letting the virus stop the fun as we're bringing you 4 virtual specials. Our first, last Sunday night, with ESPN's Tim Kirchin, is available on the archives page at www.bigtrain.org. Tonight, we'll be hearing from Hank Thomas, the grandson and biographer of our namesake, Walter Big Train Johnson. And after Hank, we'll hear from our Hall of Fame manager, Sal Colangelo, about the 2021 team. There's a week-long online auction associated with each of our 4 Sunday night specials to help you with your holiday shopping. You can find this week's auction at www.bigtrain.org/auction. Before we hear from Hank and Sal, let me just tell you about 5 of this week's featured items. For the hardcore Big Train fan who wasn't around in our inaugural season, we have something very special. Famed printmaker Joseph Craig English dug into his archives last week and found the very last of the limited edition silkscreen artist proof prints he did of our inaugural season. This frame beauty is the last of its kind. Now, after you hear from Hank Thomas tonight, you're going to want to bid on the 45-minute Zoom session with Hank. You and 5 of your friends will have the ultimate hot stove experience this winter. And you get the Walter Johnson biography signed not just by Hank, but 3 of Johnson's children. Our co-founder, John Orsman, and Big Train senior advisor, Dick Walker, will take you and a friend for lunch and a round of golf at Congressional Country Club, home of multiple United States Opens. 2-time All-Star and World Series champion Ryan Zimmerman has signed a bottle of Willett Family Estate 8-year-old single-barrel bourbon. Big Train board member Rachel Northridge was able to get Monumental Sports to donate a jersey autographed by Capitals Stanley Cup champion Nicklas Backstrom. Our general manager, Chris Rogers, has done a fabulous job presenting these items to make your holiday shopping incredibly easy. Bidding closes on these items on Wednesday night, November 25th at 10 o'clock. These are first-rate items, most of which you will be able to secure at below full value prices. Your family and friends will be so excited to receive these gifts. So bid often, bid high. The money we raise at our holiday auction will help us be able to bring the fun back to Shirley Povich Field in 2021 after this horrible year. With your support, we're going to dedicate our 2021 season to the nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, and public safety workers who are helping us through this crisis. And now for the main event. So we're here tonight with Hank Thomas, the grandson and biographer of the great Walter Johnson. Hank and his family gave us permission to use the name Big Train for our summer college team, and it has been a source of great pride to many of us to see our players wear the Big Train name for 21 seasons. Hank's the author of the definitive biography of Walter Johnson, who was voted into the first class at the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown with Ruth, Cobb, Wagner, and Matheson. Pretty fair company. Hank's wonderful book is a must-read for any serious baseball fan. If you go to our online auction, you'll be able to bid on the book signed by Hank and 3 of the Johnson children, as well as a 45-minute Zoom session with Hank. So be the envy of the hot stove world by being the high bidder at www.bigtrain.org. Walter Johnson pitched for the Washington Senators for 21 seasons. That's a lot of baseball. I'm gonna leave it to our viewers to read Hank's book to get all the details. Today, we only have time to focus on the essence of the man. So Hank, how does a Kansas farm boy born in 1887 end up in Washington, D.C. pitching in front of presidents?
Well, to us looking back, it's a long story, a long journey. But to Walter, it must have seemed like the blink of the eye because he was in Washington at the age of 19 and was pretty much an immediate sensation and the toast of certainly Washington baseball, if not the American League at large. He started on a homestead farm in Kansas. He never played an organized game of baseball until his father was driven off the farm by a terrible drought around the turn of the century, 1901, and moved the family to Southern California, felicitously, as it turned out, for Walter's baseball career, because that was a hotbed of baseball being played all year round with the wonderful climate there. And also the semi-pro leagues there had many minor and even major league players that would come in the off season to keep their skills sharp and make a little money playing for these basically industrial company sponsored teams. So Walter started off, he had a talent, he had a natural talent. He was the ultimate natural, I've always thought, in the game of baseball, even though he wasn't a slugger like Roy Hobbs. He said the first time he ever picked up a baseball and threw it, everything just seemed to work all together, is the way that he put it. And in my research, I have found nothing to dispute that. There was no learning curve. He got picked up by a local semi-pro team in near Anaheim, California. Somebody saw him playing in a kids game and saw the way he could throw a baseball, picked him up. At the age of 16, he was playing semi-pro baseball, pitching against what they call fast company back then, which included, as I said, many professional ball players. And he was great from the start. He was, he just, and all he had was a fastball, but it was fast enough. I mean, I think it's safe to say it was, even to this day, maybe the fastest pitch that any pitcher has ever thrown, because basically that's all he threw in his career. And anyway, he played semi-pro ball. A teammate of his got signed by the Tacoma team of the Northwest League. He went up there. He pitched one game. He got up there 4 days after the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. Devastated the city, the area. It also happened to devastate the Pacific Coast League, which was almost the equivalent of a major league back then. So this Tacoma team, the manager, thought that he was going to be inundated with ball players from the Pacific Coast League looking for work, because the Pacific Coast League was going to disband with San Francisco and Oakland having been knocked out. So Walter pitched one game there for earthquake relief. He did fine. He pitched a good game, and then he got released because this manager thought he was going to have his pick of these PCL pitchers. A teammate from Southern California had gone up there with him, had wandered down to the small town Weiser, Idaho, and had gotten a job as kind of a ringer with this team. That's how it worked with these local town ball was sweeping the country at the time. And these local teams had these intense rivalries with neighboring towns, a lot of gambling, and everybody came in, all the farmers came in from miles and miles away on Sundays to watch these ball games. So the towns would get these ball players, itinerant ball players, jobs, supposedly. And so Walter went down there, got a job with the telephone company, as he said it. He never put in a day of work there. His real job was to pitch on Sundays. Of course, with this talent that he had, this natural talent, he was a sensation. Went back to Southern California for the winter, did well there. He got scouted by some Pacific Coast League managers. It's really a mystery as to how Walter didn't move up quicker within that environment. He ended up going back to Weiser for another season, and just by coincidence, a salesman passed through that had played baseball in the 1890s with the then manager of the Washington Ball Club in the American League, a fellow named Joe Cantillion. He inundated Cantillion with letters and telegrams saying, "You've got to come out here." And of course, these major league managers, they got these letters every day from some, obscure location touting the local wonder that was striking everybody out. And yes, they were terrific within that small pond, but then when they got to the larger environment, they didn't pan out. So finally, as he said later, just to get this old friend of his off his back, Cantillion sent this catcher who had broken his thumb and was actually going to Kansas to sign Clyde Milan, who was turned out to be another wonderful longtime player with Washington, and also Walter Johnson's best friend, and their wives became best friends. They were both 19 years old. And so as Cantillion told this catcher, Cliff Blankenship, he said, "Go and sign Milan. We've already got a line on him." And, "Oh, okay, while you're out there, go on up to Idaho and take a look at this kid that my old friend keeps telling me about." He went up there. He never even saw Walter pitch a game. He played catch with him outside Walter's boarding house, and that was enough.
So he's in the big leagues. Tell us about Ty Cobb's first reaction to the 19-year-old Rube from Weiser, Idaho in 1907.
Well, Cantillion told the press, he says, "I'm going to take it easy on this kid. We don't know. He's had this long journey, and, we really don't know what he's got. So it's going to be a while before I pitch him." And as soon as he saw him pitch one batting practice session, at which Jim Delahanty, one of the 5 Delahanty brothers that played Major League Baseball, took one pitch, walked back to the bench. Cantillion says, "What are you doing? Get up there for your batting practice." He says, "Oh, no." He says, "I'm not standing up there against this kid until I see how good his control is." So that's how that went. Cantillion announces that day, he says, "I'm going to pitch this kid. He's going to be in this big doubleheader we got against the Detroit Tigers coming up in a few days." And the Tigers, of all the opponents that he could have picked for Walter in the first game, they were leading the league. They were on their way to the American League pennant, the first of 3 straight pennants. They had the very young Ty Cobb and other Sam Crawford, full of Hall of Famers and great players. And this is the team that Walter's going to face for his first game in the major leagues. And as Cobb put it, he says, "Yeah, we were making fun of this kid, and they were mooing and saying, 'Get the pitchfork ready, Joe. This kid's going to be going back to the farm as soon as we get up there.'" And then he said, then we saw him take that long sweeping windup and saw that ball hiss over the plate. They said it made a hiss. And that was something a lot of ball players would say to describe when asked, "Well, what was it that was different about Walter Johnson's pitch? What was it? What did he have?" And they said, "Well, he's the only pitcher I ever hit against it. The ball made a noise when it crossed the plate, a swoosh or a hiss, they would describe it." And he says, "Now we weren't laughing anymore once we saw that. In fact, we were in awe, and we all looked at each other, and we knew that we were looking at the most fearsome weapon ever unleashed on a ball field." That's how Cobb put it in his autobiography.
So let's watch a short video to give us a sense of what Cobb saw that afternoon.
Look at that. Just a whip.
It's just unbelievable to watch.
He's just using his arm as a whip. He had unusually long arms.
And he's throwing down from the side.
I love this. Look at this. You just see where the power is coming from his back and his legs. His arm is just like a fulcrum or something. I mean,
You said it, the natural. Just
totally
incredible.
unusual. He often speculated about why other pitchers. He said sometimes it would make me wince to watch these pitchers with this wrenching overhand motion that puts so much strain on the shoulder and the elbow. He says he couldn't understand why other pitchers didn't try to throw, but he had a once in a lifetime trying to explain, watching Sam Snead hit a golf ball, that just the grace of it, the coordination. There's no explaining it. It's just it's a once in a lifetime talent. That's all.
It's just extraordinary. So I want to know what Walter Johnson would think of today's game. Johnson started 666 games. He finished 531 of them. He had 110 complete game shutouts. No one will ever touch that mark. The magnificent Bulldog national starter, Max Scherzer, has 5 career complete game shutouts. So, Hank, what would your grandfather think of these pitchers who couldn't finish what they started?
Well, he was alive, and actually he was active in the game when the move toward relief pitching really started seriously. And he didn't understand it. And he thought, I don't think he'd understand it today. In fact, he'd be, he'd probably be saying, see what it led to. Now, ironically, the first example of relief specialization took place involving him in the 1924 season, his last really great season. He was the MVP, and he still had it. It was his 18th year in the big leagues. And Bucky Harris, the boy wonder manager, the 26-year-old player manager of Washington, got the idea. He had this young Texan, Fred Marbury, big, strong guy that could throw hard. And he was a rookie. And he would bring Marbury in when Walter had a good lead in a game. And of course, he's trying to, he wants Walter to pitch as much as possible. Walter won 13 games in a row that year. I mean, he basically won that pennant for them. And he was the most valuable player of the league that year. So Marbury would come in the 8th or 9th inning and take over for Walter Johnson. And that's all he did. That was his job that year. And it worked. It worked great. And I'm sure, Walter appreciated the rest. He didn't have to. It was unusual at the time because pitchers were expected to finish their game. It wasn't just Walter that had a very high percentage of complete games. Pitchers, they were expected to do that. And that was the strategy. Put a pitcher in there. And relief pitching at the time consisted of other starting pitchers that would be brought in if a game was really out of hand, brought in relief, and then maybe they would delay their next start by a day or two. That's what there weren't relief pitchers. And actually Marbury was the first, and he's recognized in baseball as the first relief specialist. Coming in for Walter Johnson, ironically, who, as you said, completed 532 out of his 666 starts in the major leagues. So, but Walter, especially when he was a manager in the 30s, and now relief pitching is starting to get, there's guys on teams just there to come in relief. And, it's getting to be a big deal. And that strategy kind of swept through the major leagues. And, today, as we know, and Walter said he didn't think it was good because if pitchers, his thinking was, if pitchers don't pitch 9 innings, they won't be able to pitch 9 innings.
Right.
And these days, you could say if pitchers aren't allowed to pitch 5 innings, they won't be able to pitch 5 innings. And that's how it's devolved. And how long is it going to be before There's no such thing as that. I mean, they're going to have to start changing the rules about who gets a win, if that statistic even, comes to have any relevance anymore, because pitchers, they're not even going 5 anymore. They're just, and there are some managers now that have the strategy. There is no starting pitcher. There's just the first pitcher.
Right.
And he'll go an inning or two until he seems to tire, and then we'll put somebody else in. And I don't get it. I would like some Sabre guy or somebody, Bill James or somebody, to show me the evidence that pitchers back in the teens and 20s or 30s, before relief pitching became a big thing, were actually worse in the later innings than they were in the beginning. It looks to me, just from my research into my grandfather's career, that's not the case. When he finished the game, he had 110 shutouts. I mean, that was 1/5 of his starts. He was certainly as good in the ninth as he was in the first in those games, because he never gave a run, never gave up a run. So I don't know, but he wouldn't be in favor.
So Walter Johnson had 3,508 career strikeouts, was a Major League Baseball record for 56 years. There were 6,895 strikeouts by the 16 teams in 1927. There are 42,823 strikeouts by the 30 teams in 2019. With the willingness of today's batters to swing for the fences and strike out so frequently, how many strikeouts might a Walter Johnson quality pitcher have in today's game?
The mind boggles. It really was. It was disgraceful for batters to strike out in the old days. That's how it was regarded. And of course, I mean, famously, you have, fellows like Joe Sewell, who would, have 600 at bats with 7 strikeouts. Now that was unusual. I think even Joe DiMaggio, in a year where he hit 30 some homers, he struck out 43 times or something. I mean, they didn't. So yeah, they just swing away. I mean, you see them still down at the barrel of the bottom of the bat, swinging away. Walter would have, he'd have eaten them alive. There's no telling. I mean, those numbers would, you don't even talk about it, because it would be a fantasy to most people. They wouldn't believe you.
So Hank, we don't have time today to go game by game through Walter's marvelous career. That's what your book is all about. But I do think
I don't do every game. I want to let people
almost.
That would be impossible, but
it's a great book.
A lot of them worth writing about, I'll say.
Exactly. But I do think we need your take on the 1924 World Series. So set us up and tell us about the Game 7 finale.
Well, the setup is a big part of it, because he's coming to the end of his career, and he was long since had been generally recognized throughout baseball as the greatest pitcher that had ever lived. He was also, it happened, and for the good fortune of the hitters in those days, he was a wonderful human being. He was a very kind, gentle, modest person. A lot of times you'd hear players, and they, these tough guys off of the farms and the coal mine didn't use this word about their fellow ball players very often, but they would call him sweet. He was just a sweet guy, a really nice guy. And he wouldn't throw at players. Pitchers of those days, that was another pitch for them. Just drill somebody in the back, and then the other, you're not going to dig in. So this great pitcher, this great character, announces at the beginning of the season that he's going to retire. He sees the light at, he sees the end of the tunnel approaching. Still great, but he knows nobody lasts forever, and he's got a family, he's got a wife and 5 kids, and he's looking for his future. And his idea is to buy a minor league team and become an owner, a team owner, maybe an owner manager. So he announces this is going to be his last year. And there was no reason, and there was great sadness throughout the baseball world, because he had never had, because he had played for lousy teams most of his career. And a lot of ball players, back then, there wasn't free agency, but the ball players could move around. They had some leverage because tell the manager or the owner, say, you know what? I feel like next year might not be as good as my previous years, unless you guys trade me to the Yankees or to Boston. Get on a good team where they have a chance of winning a pennant. Walter never did that. He stayed loyal to what he liked Washington. He loved Clark Griffith, the owner. They had a very much a father-son relationship. So there was this great sadness that Walter Johnson was never going to get to be on the big stage of a World Series. And there was no reason to believe in 1924 that Washington would do any better than they had in 23, which was to barely finish fourth. But it was a miracle season, very much equivalent to the 2019 season that we just witnessed with Washington. A lot of parallels. They were sunk in June. They were done. And they just, as Babe Ruth put it in his autobiography, he said that team got hotter faster than any team I ever saw in my career. And that's what happened. And Bucky, I think a lot of it could be attributed to Bucky Harris, who just was this young guy. He was on fire, and he had the team on fire. And players told about how he'd come into their rooms late at night, and he'd go over the roster and he'd say, we're just as good as the Yankees. Look, we've got Joe Judge at first, and we got Peckinpah at short. We got Walter Johnson, for crying out loud, and like that, and really pump them up. And they just started winning and kept winning. And by golly, they won the pennant. They barely beat out the Yankees. Now, this is the Yankees that had won 3 straight American League pennants. We're talking Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Murderers Row, they called it. Just an immensely powerful team. And Washington beat them. Also, Detroit had a great team with Cobb and a whole bunch of other Hall of Famers. And so Washington barely won the pennant, got into the World Series. So now everybody's going, oh my gosh, how great is this? Walter Johnson going to get into a World Series and, be able to, now everybody's going to get to see what Washington fans have been seeing all these years. And so they get into the first game. Walter actually pitched a wonderful game. He pitched 165 pitches. How about that for a pitch count? He went all 12 innings. In the first 9, the only runs he gave up were 2 homers into what they would do back in the old days was when they had huge, big crowds and they wanted to get that money in, they would rope off the outfield for 20 or 30 feet in front of the stands and let people stand there. And so there was 2, what would have been ordinary fly ball outs hit into that roped off area. So it went into extra innings. He ended up losing that game 4-3. Washington came back, won the next game. Giants won the 3rd game. Washington won the 4th game. So now Walter, who was supposed to pitch game 4, but got delayed because of that 165 pitches. Now he's up at the Polo Grounds. Series tied 2-2. I mean, this is, wow. If you lose this game, now you got to win the last 2. Tough challenge for any team. Walter gets pounded up in the Polo Grounds. He did all right for 8 innings. Then in the 9th, they just really got to him. 6 runs, 13 hits. Very unusual game for Walter. Maybe he was still recovering from that first game. Who knows? Or he just had a bad game. I mean, even the great pitchers will be off on occasion. Now, they played a game every day for 7 straight days in that series. They took the train up back and forth between Washington and New York. So now they're coming back to DC for the 6th game. Walter's not going to pitch again. He just pitched a complete game. So he's not going to be available for the 6th game and not the 7th either, if there is one. Well, Washington won the 6th game 2-1. Now there's going to be a 7th game. But he's not, you see in the pictures before the game, he's wearing his sweater. He's not going to pitch. As fate would have it, the game at the end of 9 innings was tied 3-3. Bucky Harris is out of pitchers. As I said, 7 games in 7 days. That'll put some wear and tear on your pitching staff. And in this game, I think 4 pitchers had already come in and out. And Harris, he's really got nobody left to pitch. But you know who he's got sitting on the bench? He's got Walter Johnson. So he waves him in. Crowd goes wild. Harris hands Walter the ball and he says, "Whatever happens, Walter, it's your game now." Meaning, you're not coming out. We're either going to win this game with you or we're going to lose it with you. And you talk about, but Walter Griffith described Walter as nice a guy as he was, as modest as he was. Griffith said, and he had seen him pitch his entire career, he said, "That guy has the heart of a lion." And that's what you saw. And he was in trouble it went 12 innings. He pitched 4 of those. He was in deep trouble. There were men on base. The Giants had men on base all 4 of those innings. And in the 9th, especially, there were men on second and third with 1 out. And up comes the major league runs batted in leader, Long George Kelly for the Giants, Hall of Famer. Their entire starting lineup is in the Hall of Fame today. Show you how good they were in their 4th straight World Series. Show you what a David and Goliath story that series was. Up comes Kelly. Game on the line. He had driven in 138 runs that year to lead the major leagues. Walter strikes him out and gets the next guy on a ground ball. They're out of the inning. In the 11th inning, there's men on first and second this time with 1 out. Up comes Long George Kelly again with his 138 RBIs for the season. Walter strikes him out again. The crowd, people said, he said there was thousands of people in the crowd. It's like when you're watching a horror movie and you're putting your hand in front of your face, just be able to see a little bit of the screen. They said, turn away with every pitch. They couldn't bear to see it. The game was on the line. Walter's legacy was on the line. He struck him out again. Finally, in the 12th inning, the Senators, again, by circumstances, well, the last of which was the famous, what they comes down through baseball history, is the pebble hit, the famous pebble hit. That's what it took for Washington to win that game and that series. A hard ground ball right at the third baseman. It was going to be a double play, and then you're going to go into another extra inning. Instead, it hit something. Everybody said, that ball hit something, and it bounced all the way over the leaping third baseman's head. Freddie Lindstrom leaped as high in the air as he could and still didn't get it and rolled into left field. And Muddy Rule, the catcher who had been on second base, the slowest runner on the team, chugs home for the winning run. And the Washington won what would be their only World Series until last year. And the headline in the Washington Post the next day in, the 8-point type or whatever it is for wars and the like, Johnson is hero as Nationals win decisive game of World Series 4-3. City in carnival celebrates. And it was a carnival. Washington, D.C. stayed up all night. There were cars careening over sidewalks, and of course, Shirley Povich, our friend and hero, the great writer, described seeing the Cherrydale fire department careening down a street in Washington with the big hook and ladder, had a huge sign plastered on the side of it saying, "Let Cherrydale burn."
Unbelievable. So, Hank, it proves there is a baseball god who was not going to allow Walter Johnson to lose 3 games in a World Series.
He would have been the GOAT. It would have been terrible. I mean, that would have been his legacy. The only World Series. Actually, they got into another one the next year, which was great. Yeah, and there were players. There was a New York Giant, especially. I think it was Jack Bentley. It was a DC native guy, and I asked his reaction after the game, and he just said, "Well, it just didn't look like the good Lord was going to let Walter lose that game.
Unbelievable. Hey, so Hank, we got a couple of folks here, Big Train supporters and friends of yours who have some questions. So Big Train fans, I'm pleased to introduce Bill Hickman, who's been an incredibly important part of the reason that Big Train has been so successful. In our early years, Bill was the person who organized our volunteer corps. And as the Big Train historian for 2 decades, Bill makes sure we keep our player stats and records up to date. And he tracks all our players as they go through professional baseball. He's now serving on the governing board of our Bethesda Community Baseball Club. So thank you, Bill, for all you've done for Big Train all these years. What's your question for Hank?
Hey, Hank, a lot of people
Hey,
are
Bill.
curious about the nickname Big Train as it applies to Walter Johnson. Would you tell us about the origin of that name?
I will, and it took a great deal of research to dig out. Somewhere along the line, it had been assumed that the Big Train, that nickname had been coined by the great writer Grantland Rice, who came up with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for the great Notre Dame running backs, other nicknames that he had given to players. Players had nicknames back then. One of the many colorful aspects of baseball back then that's kind of gone by the wayside and somebody should revive, but all great players had a nickname. The writing back then was just much more lively and colorful. So everybody had a nickname, and I, like everybody else, had thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. Grantland Rice, was well known for his terrific poetic nicknames for players. But then I came across a long magazine article that Grantland Rice wrote about Walter Johnson from late in Walter's career, long after he had that nickname had become standard for him. And not once in that article did Grantland Rice call him the Big Train. And I just thought, and he called him other things, the Kansas Cyclone. I think there was maybe the Weezer Wonder. I just thought, gosh, that really doesn't make any sense. If Rice had applied that to him, he'd be proud of it. And of course, he'd use it throughout his article, not even once. So that sent me on a journey trying to find out where it did come from and who put it on him. And you talk about an aspect of my research that there were many times I thought I'm putting much too much time and effort into this. I have to move on if I'm ever going to have a book. But it intrigued me. It's such a well-known part of his career. I thought, I'll give it. I ended up giving it about 3 weeks, believe it or not, down at the Library of Congress, just doing that. And the way I did it was I started at about the time the usage of that nickname was common. And I worked backwards. And I worked backwards for years. And, you can't, there were so many newspapers back then, and I couldn't look at all of them. I would look at the major Washington newspapers, the big New York newspapers, because those were really, the 800-pound gorilla of the sports writing world in those days. And lo and behold, I came across an incident in after the 1914 season. Walter jumped to the Federal League, believe it or not. He actually signed a contract. There was a third league, one of many, that had been attempted throughout the history of baseball to break the monopoly that the National American League had. And Walter signed this contract, and then Griffith goes to Kansas. It's a great story. He meets Walter at this hotel, And as I said, Walter was thought a lot of Griffith, and he really was a father figure to him. And as the reports had it, when Walter left that meeting with Griffith, there were tears rolling down his cheeks. So whatever Griffith said to Walter, it was probably something along the lines of, you know, I'm going to be the owner of this team. I'm buying every share I can get, and I need you. You know, the only reason I came to Washington in the first place was that I thought, you know what, Washington has Walter Johnson. I'm going to win a pennant, you know, with them, with Walter as my pitcher. So anyway, Walter reneges on his contract. He said it was maybe the lousiest thing I ever did in my life. But he did. And so at the start of the 1915 season in spring training, nobody knew. And of course, the Chicago team for whom Walter had signed this contract, they were going to sue. And they were going to make him play. They had a contract, make him play. So nobody knew at the beginning. Now, Walter had said, no, I'm going to play for Washington. I'm not going to honor this contract. But nobody really knew. So in spring training, the day that Walter was supposed to arrive, no Walter. Here's the train, and no Walter. And so the sports writer, the baseball writer for the Washington Post, a fellow named Stanley Milliken, wrote, he said this, he said, the big train that was supposed to bring Walter Johnson into camp today arrived, but Walter wasn't on it. And then the next day, so something about that, the big train, but it wasn't about, you know, Walter or his pitching. It was about the train that was supposed to bring, of course, you know, locomotives, you know, these huge iron monsters of the day were the biggest thing, just about, and people were in awe of them, the big train. So a day or two later, and it might have been the next day, Milliken writes, everybody was relieved to see the big train, Walter Johnson, roll into Hot Springs, or wherever it was today. And that was the first usage, and he started using it regularly, and then it started getting picked up by others. So it was this very obscure, I really know nothing about him. It wasn't one of the famous writers. You know, a lot of baseball writers back in the day were attracted to the game because of its color and its drama. And so you've got guys like Ring Lardner, Damon Runyon, and a lot of great writers started as sports writers. But it wasn't one of those guys. It was Stanley Milliken, who only was their baseball writer for a couple of years.
Hank, we have another special guest to ask the final question tonight, our friend Randy Schools, who you helped to recruit as the chair of our booster club. Randy.
No, but Hank, I just want to let you know how fortunate we are to have you associated with the Bethesda Big Train.
Oh.
And we're just grateful to your family, starting way back there in 1999, for giving us permission to name our summer collegiate baseball team after the Big Train. And in his honor, Montgomery County has named a high school after your grandfather. A lot of alumni in Montgomery County of Walter Johnson. And last year, it was the inaugural class. It was inducted into the Montgomery County Sports Hall of Fame. And a statue of your grandfather is outside of Rockville's Dogwood Park. And just with all this kind of honors, and sometimes it's just a feeling of baseball being a big part of our lives. What do you feel about all this honors and the status of your grandfather in this time?
Well, I have a very special feeling about the Big Train, the Bethesda Big Train, And I wish people could know, we could flash on the screen your background with the big train and other. I mean, you are, Mutual Admiration Society. You are my hero. You're everything that I've always wanted to be in life, and of course, fell short. But you have achieved that. And anyway, it is wonderful to see you and talk to you again. The big train, you know what's great, what really makes it special, and of course, you remember how closely we worked together at the beginning.
Right.
And then I've been involved tangentially over the years, tried to do, whatever Bruce asked of me. But and there are, as you know, and you cited some of them, there's statues, there's plaques, there's things named after him. The high school, of course, is just a wonderful honor and thrill for the family to be associated with such a great school. And I run into people all the time that have made a huge mark in life, and some of whom are famous, and they're so proud to have gone to Walter Johnson High School, named after the greatest pitcher of all time, and I get a big kick out of that. But the thing about the big train is it's a living, breathing memorial, and all of these kids that go on, that pass through there and just have the benefit of, some of them, their lives have been changed by the host families, or just the experience of being in a wonderful place like Bethesda. Or, for a lot of them, I'm sure it's the nicest ball field that they've ever played on. And it continues, and hopefully it'll always. That makes it just so much more than just a statue, or a plaque with an inscription. I love all of those, of course. Any legacy to my grandfather. We're so proud of him. He was just, not just for the pitching, but for the human being that he was, and the other things that he did. He in politics, and he was a real community-minded person. And so, anyway, that's what makes it. And to have watched over the years, you and Bruce and Peggy and Bill and so many others devote so much of your lives to it. And as I said before, I could only aspire. I don't have that kind of drive that has allowed me to make that mark on the lives of so many people. But I've always just been in tremendous admiration of those that you do.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
I'm wishing his sweetness stays with us forever. It's a great word.
It's a great.
To be part of.
It's
Yep.
great, Randy. Hank, in 2002, the Bethesda Community Baseball Club established the Randy School's Big Train Outstanding Service Award to honor Randy, our Booster Club chair, who's been an extraordinary community leader in the greater Washington region, especially right here in Bethesda, Chevy Chase area. Big Train was pleased to honor Randy this summer as one of our inaugural Big Train Community Heroes, and we hope to be able to present Randy with that award next summer at a game at Povich Field. So Randy, last week we presented 3 of the Randy Schools Awards to 3 of the leaders of BCC baseball. And tonight I'm especially pleased that you're here to present the award to our friend Hank Thomas. Hank was our first general manager. He helped recruit you to the Booster Club. He's been a great friend of the organization all these years, always willing to come out to the ballpark. This is a second interview he's done in 6 months on BigTrain.tv. He's donated signed books for our auction and literally a suitcase full of baseball cards. Seriously, folks, in my dining room, there's a set of 20 different Walter Johnson cards that have been produced in mass numbers filling up this suitcase. And we put some of those together that'll be in this week's auction. So Randy, a few words from you before we ask Hank for his final thoughts tonight about Hank winning the Randy Schools Award.
No, but Hank, like I mentioned earlier, it's just been a real honor to be part of the Walter Johnson legacy. It's a legacy of sweetness, as we've just mentioned, and it's a good, outstanding place to go. And the place that I'm really proud that I was asked by Bruce and the friendship to build as well, is that we've created a place. It's a small town atmosphere. It's fun. It's like the summer carnival for Montgomery County. So let's keep growing it, and let's hope that the next generation takes care of it and builds and builds and builds.
Thank you, Randy. So Hank, congratulations. I hope you enjoy the framed replica of a print of Big Train Baseball at Povich Field, done by the famed printmaker Joseph Craig English in 1999. So Hank, congratulations.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Randy. I am deeply honored. I never in the world ever thought about anything like this. It's a double or triple honor to have an award with Randy School's name on it. That just, that means so much to me, and I thank you, Bruce. And I am deeply, deeply touched. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks to Bill and Randy, and thanks to Hank for giving us such a rich portrait of one of the most admirable people to ever live here in Montgomery County. So Big Train fans, Hank has generously donated a 45-minute hot stove conversation with the winning bidder and 5 of his or her favorite baseball fans. As a bonus, you get Hank's biography of his grandfather that's signed by 4 members of the Johnson family. So be the envy of the hot stove world by being the high bidder at www.bigtrain.org. This auction will end at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, November 25th. So thank you, Hank. And now a word from our sponsors at the Dandy Walker Alliance. And then I'll be right back. Thanks, Hank.
Thank you.
1 in 10,000 children are born with a brain malformation known as Dandy Walker syndrome. Dandy Walker can cause enlargement of the skull, lack of muscle control, and other developmental challenges. More research is needed, but we do know that early therapy helps many live healthier, fuller lives. 1 in 10,000 may not seem like a lot unless your child is the one. Learn more, find help, and help others. Visit dandy-walker.org.
Lots more Big Train baseball ahead tonight. You'll want to hear my interview with our Hall of Fame manager, Sal Colangelo. We're going to discuss how he recruits his players, and Sal will tell you about the team he's recruited for 2021 season. But before we get to our awards and to Sal, I want to introduce you to a really important new organization in our area, Nourishing Bethesda. Our Bethesda Community Baseball Club has always been about more than just the baseball. In our first 13 years, we raised $600,000 to improve fields for kids from Germantown to Anacostia. With the support of the Trawick Foundation, we showcase our community nonprofits at every game at Povich Field. In the last 10 years, the Montgomery County Ripken League players have collected 60,846 pounds of food for the Manna Food Center. Unable to do that this year because of COVID shut down our season, our newly reconstituted Bethesda Community Baseball Club donated $2,500 to Manna, and we honored Manna Executive Director Jackie DiCarlo as one of our Big Train community heroes. In 2021, we're going to dedicate our season to the nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, and the first responders who are helping us through this COVID nightmare. And on Saturday, June 12th, 2021, we're going to have our first annual Roberto Clemente Community Service Day. So as we were preparing for our Big Train baseball and holiday auction, I learned about an exciting new community service organization, and our board immediately voted to join the coalition. We're pleased to welcome Ann Dursey, Deacon and Community Life Coordinator at St. John's Norwood Episcopal Church, and John Ross, the chair of the men's ministry at the church, to tell us about Nourishing Bethesda. So Ann, please tell us how this got started and about the terrific partners you have.
Bruce, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about Nourishing Bethesda. I can tell you that when the COVID-19 pandemic hit our county, our community, it just galvanized our church, St. John's Norwood, to want to get involved and address the needs of the people who'd been most impacted. And in conversation with people in the county, people like Andrew Friedson and other colleagues, and people in the nonprofit sector, we learned that one of the biggest issues was food insecurity. And food insecurity was a problem before the pandemic, with 65,000 people who were food insecure, and now it's closer to 100,000. So we decided to establish a program that would provide food to feed a family for a week every Friday, working with our community partners, Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue Squad, the Hyatt Regency Bethesda, and of course, Bethesda Community Baseball. And with the support of those wonderful partners, since August 14th, we've been feeding 200 plus families every Friday. And I just want to say thank you to you and everyone who helped us get into this. It was new to us. We're learning as we go, but it's been remarkably successful. And we want to encourage others in the community to get involved. You can support us as a volunteer. You can support us as a donor. The more money we raise, the more people we can feed and the longer we can feed them. Right now, we're committed to working through August next year. And we've joined in hand with the county, which is supporting us with wonderful food donations. So thank you for this opportunity to tell you a little bit about it.
Well, and thank you for your leadership. John, I see you on the front lines on Friday afternoons in charge of the distribution of the boxes of food. Tell us how you're fighting food insecurity here in Bethesda.
Well, Bruce, first of all, thanks for having me on and thanks for your participation. It's a really community effort. You know, as Ann was saying, echo that. We hand out food for about 1,000 people for meals. So we have quite an organization. There are incredible volunteering opportunities to pack the food on Thursday night and then on transport it. And then on Friday afternoon, we hand it out to people who drive up or walk up to us at the rescue squad. And it really is quite something to see. The people are so grateful. I tell the volunteers, and this is what's special about Nourishing Bethesda too, because we're not just only about giving out food, but we're about community. So I tell the volunteers to welcome people, to share with them as we load food into their cars, that we're all in the same boat together, that there are people here in our community for them in this time of need. And I got to tell you, Bruce, it's just been stunning to us to see the need. You say Bethesda, there's no need in Bethesda. And we see it every week in the faces of the people that drive up. When we said last week to one woman that we're going to have chickens this week to hand out, she started crying. There's just so much need and feeling out there, and for us to step in and to be a support for people, and not just the calories, but really the community. And that's what's so great about this coalition, because with baseball, with the private sector, the public sector, the service community, and faith communities, we can find a common goal to come together and to really help our fellow people, citizens, through this terrible time.
Well, we're almost always stronger together. I know Homer, our mascot, enjoyed being out there working with you guys. So I'm pleased to welcome our friend Andrew Friedson, the county council member from the district that includes Bethesda. Andrew, thank you for being a sponsor of our event and for donating a Zoom conversation with you for our auction that'll be up this week. Please tell us about the food scarcity issue right here in Montgomery County and why you feel the work of Nourishing Bethesda is so important in these difficult times.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for all that you and Bethesda Baseball are doing, and to our tremendous community members, Reverend Jersey and John and the church, who really stepped up to meet this tremendous need. And you heard it. Bethesda, people think of as the tremendous talent and success and wealth that we have, and we have all of those things, certainly, but we also have the challenges that everywhere else has. And we have neighbors who are hurting. We have community members who are in pain. We had that before this crisis. We have even more of it now. COVID-19, the only new thing about it is the novel coronavirus itself. Everything else has just taken the existing challenges that we've had, those cracks in our society, and blown them wide open. And the need for those of us who have been less impacted to step up to help those who've been more impacted, to fill that void, to fill that need, has been absolutely essential if we're going to be able to get through this. And the only way we can get through it is through this type of partnership, the private sector and the public sector, the faith community and the nonprofit community, all coming together to make sure that we aren't leaving anybody behind. In Montgomery County, in Bethesda, in our community, to have any family who doesn't know where their next meal is going to come, they don't know whether or not they're going to be able to put food on the table for their children. That is an unacceptable situation for each of us. And for us to be able to step up to help and work together to fill that void is just so important, so meaningful to me. And I'll just close by saying Bethesda comes from the Hebrew and Aramaic word from the Bible. It comes from and is named for a church. And it means house of loving kindness. And that is not a noun, that is a verb, that is action, that is coming together to do things, to show what loving kindness actually looks like. I don't know if there has been a better example of that. I don't know if there has been a more important time to show that than this effort with Nourishing Bethesda, which really has been an example where we have lived up to the namesake of our community. I hope we all can take some pride in that. And right after we take some pride in that, we have to participate in that. And that means with volunteering, that means with whatever financial contributions we're all able to make. We all have to be part of these challenges in order to solve them. And this is just such a great example of community, of partnership, and of the type of place that we want to be and the type of people who we are.
Well, we want to heal, we need to heal, and Nourishing Bethesda is the center of that. Thank you, Andrew, for your leadership and for your support of Big Train Baseball. John, last question. How can people donate their time and treasure to help you with this important work?
Oh, thanks, Bruce. We have a sign-up genius, which lists an extraordinary amount of volunteering opportunities depending on what you can do, times of the week, whether you want to lift something or you don't want to lift something, whether you want to be outside or inside. So there's a sign-up genius. So you can click on that and check it out. And in addition, we have another link that you can click on if you are interested in donating. We have a bunch of opportunities for people to donate to help. And 100% of your donation, 100% will go to food. Not a cent will be to overhead. We are all volunteers. So 100% of your donation will go to food. And that's in keeping with, what we're really trying to do, which is get resources to the people who need it without a lot of fuss.
There are more neighbors in need in Bethesda than almost anybody out there imagines. So you'll be able to find the links on how to volunteer and donate to Nourishing Bethesda on the Big Train auction page website at www.bigtrain.org/auction. Thank you, Ann, John, and Andrew for what you're doing to support our neighbors in need. Big Train organization is proud to be your partner. And now a word from our wonderful United States Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Well, thank you, Bruce, for all your great work in our community. And to all my fellow Big Train baseball fans, I look forward to the time we can all gather again at Shirley Povich Field once we beat this pandemic. Thank you to all the supporters of Big Train for your work to restore youth baseball fields around our state and to cultivate Maryland's athletic talent. And I salute you for partnering with a great organization, Nourishing Bethesda, to help provide food to families in need, to neighbors who are being hard hit by this COVID-19 pandemic and the economic fallout. I've seen firsthand the great work of Nourishing Bethesda and its volunteers when I was able to join them to provide food at their delivery site to feed about 1,000 Maryland families. So thank all of you for what you're doing to reach out to those in need in our community during this pandemic. We're going to beat this thing, but in the meantime, we need to make sure we care for those who are hardest hit, and that's what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. We appreciate the kind words. And now to the Big Train Awards. In 2002, Bethesda Community Baseball Club established the Randy Schools Big Train Outstanding Service Award in honor of our Booster Club chair and the longtime community leader, Randy Schools. Last Sunday, we presented this award to 3 leaders of BCC baseball. Tonight, we've presented the award to our friend Hank Thomas, tonight's featured speaker. 2 more awards will be presented November 29th and another 2 on December 6th. This award goes to those special people who have made significant contributions to our organization. Tonight, in addition to the award to Hank, I'm very pleased to present the Randy Schools Big Train Outstanding Service Award to Kristi Voigt. Kristi has served as a Big Train athletic trainer for 7 seasons, including our recent string of 4 straight league championships. Having our own professional trainer is an important part of our commitment to the college coaches and parents who entrust us with keeping their boys safe. Kristi is passionate about making sure the Big Train players get the care and treatment they deserve. So, Kristi, we really appreciate the extraordinary commitment you've made to Big Train baseball these last 7 seasons. How did you connect to the Big Train?
I actually connected to the Big Train through their previous athletic trainer, Christina, who had needed some help covering. And then I fell in love with it the first day I was there. And just the atmosphere and the players are amazing. And she wanted to split the season with me the next year, but unfortunately she had a commitment somewhere else. So she was like, well, Sal's going to contact you. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, yes, yes. So I can just remember being so excited getting that initial call from Sal, being like, yo, you're our trainer now. So
wow. Well, lucky for us. So, Kristi, as I observe the comings and goings at the Big Train dugout during the games, it seems to me that Sal would be helpless without you. Is that about right?
That's pretty accurate. But to be honest, I would be pretty helpless without Sal too. He is such a great guy. He treats his athletic trainers like gold. And for an athletic trainer, that's the most important part, is knowing that your coach has your back no matter what. And if a player wants to question what you say, he's like, sorry, that's what she's saying. And she's the boss. So, I mean, I absolutely love him, and I could not ask for a better guy to work under.
Well, he knows you're holding them together. So you're a really key member of the Big Train family. What has the Big Train and the relationships you built with these players, coaches, and fans meant to you?
Gosh, it means everything to me. I mean, it's kind of making me cry. Big Train is my family, and I get so excited. Sal and I always have a countdown for every season. And I mean, to prove it to you, my dad had a lung transplant surgery 4 years ago, and I couldn't stay at the hospital. And I had to come to Big Train because everyone was just wrapping their arms around me, taking care of me. And I believe that I got through that because of Big Train. Wow. And I just look forward to it every year, and I just enjoy it so much.
That's beautiful. Well, congratulations, Kristi. I hope you enjoy the frame replica of the print of Big Train baseball at Povich Field done by the famed printmaker Joseph Craig English in 1999. So
thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Kristi. And now our Hall of Fame manager, Sal Colangelo, will present the 2019 Big Train Most Outstanding Hitter, Most Outstanding Defender Awards. It's all yours, Sal.
Last summer, Matt Thomas hit .345 with 7 doubles and a league best 40 runs batted in. Matt was a model of consistency, reaching base in 38 of his 41 games between the regular season and postseason. And of course, he really turned things on when the Big Train got into the playoffs. His 3-hit performance in Game 2 of the LCS kept the Big Train season alive, setting up the moment we will all remember. His rally sparking 3-run home run in the 8th inning of the Cal Ripken League championship game. Matt's play on the field speaks for itself, but off the field, he was just as important, serving as a team leader in every aspect. It's an honor to present Matt Thomas of William & Mary with the 2019 Big Train Most Outstanding Hitter Award. Matt, would you like to say anything to the Big Train faithful?
Yeah, first I just want to say thank you for that. That was awesome. You know, my time in Bethesda, that was probably the best summer that anybody could ever have when it comes to summer ball. And you know, I definitely hope that I can return in the future. But you know, as far as the 2019 season goes, you know, all the fans that were there, like I don't think I could have done it without all you guys and all the extra motivation you guys gave us. It really, really means a lot to all of us that took the field that summer. And, you know, I'm glad that we could bring home that championship. But most importantly, I just want to thank everybody that, you know, played a role in everything that we've been able to do, all the host families, all the families that came out to the games. You know, we really could not do any of that without all of you guys. So thank you all for what you guys did, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. You know, we appreciate you. We've had some good times.
Absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely.
"2019, Big Train won a regular season title and a league title, in part because of stellar defense across the field. But Keith Torres was the rock up the middle that kept the rest of the team steady. He played solid defense at both second base and shortstop, showing off impressive speed and range, both up the middle and in the hole, as well as a strong arm to cut runners down at first. It is an honor to present Keith Torres of Sacramento State with the 2019 Big Train Most Outstanding Defender Award. Keith, would you like to say anything to the Big Train faithful?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to say thank you for, you know, allowing me to play with you guys. It was a great season, a great 2019 season. Wish we got that 2020 season going, but, you know, got to deal with protocol and stuff. So can't wait to be back and can't wait to get back rolling the train again.
Well, we're glad to have you back for the 2021 season. I haven't released the roster yet, but we are glad to have you back. And Mr. Doyle, I've been waiting to have Mr. Doyle back from the Dodgers days. So be sure to tell him I'm excited to have him back. Tell Coach Reggie I said hello. And if it's anything you need from me anytime, you know, like I said before, you call me.
Hey, Sal, I'm really enjoying these managers awards. That was an extraordinary squad in 2019, an exciting final few innings of real grit and excellence in the championship game. A lot of Big Train fans ask me, how do we recruit the players? I tell them after 2 straight months of nonstop baseball and commuting up and down I-95, you go to the beach with your family and you start calling college coaches to line up next year's team. But how does it really work?
Yeah, that's true, Bruce. That's a good question. I do. I head to the beach after the season. It's a long summer, long grind, and I get down there to the beach and I relax out on the beach or at the house with the family. And believe it or not, I'm on the phone calling coaches because normally it starts in August. Sometimes a little week or two before they kind of feel you out, but it starts August 1 and they want to place their best players with a great organization. So I get bombarded with calls. So now I got to decipher through it. And how do I do that? And what am I looking for? And part of my speech to the coaches that I don't have relationships with, I want good kids first. Good kids that are going to make right decisions. They're going to make me look good, our organization look good, and their school look good. And once I can get a good kid with some ability, we're going to coach them, teach them, and put them in the position to be successful. And then from that point on, I build with the schools like the St. Mary's school, St. Mary's out of California, the Ole Miss schools that I've gone to, FAU over the years that are phenomenal coaches, good people, and I kind of build from there. And once that gets going, I kind of fill in with the other schools. But it's a long process. But you know, I try to get started when I'm at the beach and finish by September, October.
But it happens right after the season. So how is the process different in this incredibly strange COVID year?
You know, it's funny. That's a very good question because this year it's been a lot easier because I'm finding that college coaches are wanting to send more people out, especially pitching and arms. So I've over recruited this year because of COVID. I wanted to make sure I had enough players, just kind of like rosters and Division I platforms. So in the event that we had a kid this summer with COVID, we would have enough players to play. But it was extremely easier with pitching because guys had the spring off and some had the summer off. So they were more inclined to send people out because they need their innings. So it was definitely a little bit easier. But like one coach would always say, I trust them with you. I can sleep at nights. So that's why we send them to Bethesda.
So what can you tell us about the 2021 Big Train squad?
Oh, it's going to be electric. We're going to be very fast. We're going to be able to pitch it very, very well. I'm hoping to come in at the backside of the bullpen and have 1 or 2 Chase Lees, which I believe I do have, who was a phenomenal reliever 2 years ago. But we're going to be fast. We're going to be electric. We're going to put pressure on people, and I'm looking forward to getting started. And you're going to see a lot of the same schools that you've seen over the past.
So you actually coached this summer. So tell us how that went and what you learned about how to protect players, coaches, fans, families that might give us hope for a 2021 season?
I did coach the summer, Bruce, and it was challenging at first because everyone was excited to be out there. They lost their spring season. A lot of the guys that I coached were local guys that played with each other in college, against each other, or local high school rivalries, and they wanted to dap each other up, wanted to hug, wanted to see each other. So you found yourself constantly, yourself and the other coaches reminding them 6 feet apart, stay apart, sit where we told you. And eventually they're like a human and anybody else. You just got to train them to your expectations. And once you did that, they did it a lot better. We sat them down the sideline in the field. They could bring their lawn chairs, and they, for the most part, did a good job. I shouldn't say in the most part, they did a good job, because we didn't have one case of COVID this past summer in that league, the NCBL college league. So it worked. We had baseballs in certain buckets. Balls, we use our own baseballs. We shagged our own baseballs while the other team shagged their baseballs. We limited the ball being thrown around. So the mitigating procedures we put in worked for sure.
And you won.
We did win. We did win.
Okay. So a couple of our guys played in the World Series this year. What was it like for you to see Hunter Renfroe and Brandon Lau hit those incredibly important home runs in one of the most exciting games in World Series history?
Oh, I got chills. It was so surreal. I sat there and it was like I was coming out of the third base dugout and going to high-five Hunter or Brandon was going to say something smart when he came in the dugout about the pitcher. But it was like so surreal. Like they just left Bethesda Big Train. And to see them do that with two of the most amazing people, not players, but people that we've had come through our program with Hunter and Brandon, and Hunter for 2 years, just goes to show kind of what he got out of the Big Train. I couldn't be any prouder. I wish I was there cheering him on, but I did text him and say, "Hey, nice job. Keep on going. It's not over yet." But I was proud of him.
So Sal, when Derek Akopian ran into you at the mall in the spring of 1999, he recruited you to help coach the inaugural Big Train team. Did you have any idea that 2 decades later you'd still be doing this with a national championship, 8 league championships, and a spot in the Cal Ripken Hall of Fame on your resume?
No, I didn't. When I was, offered the opportunity to take over as manager from you, Bruce, and I'm grateful of it. When I ran into Derek at the mall, he said, "Sal, do you remember me?" "Yes." "You want to coach?" I thought of the old Clark Griffith League. I thought everyone plays at one field, everyone does this. But when he got into the specifics and the dynamics and what the structure was going to be like, I was like, oh my God, I'm living in Bethesda. I'm living off Gainesboro. I could walk to the field. Why not? Let's do it. And I just fell in love with the community aspect part of being a people person of Bethesda and what the whole vision and mission was of Bethesda Big Train that you instilled, you and everyone else on the board. I didn't want to leave. And, I get the question all the time is when's it going to be over? When are you going to retire? And, Chris and I joke all the time. I don't know. I said, I guess when you fire me, because I'm having so much fun. And every year, I drive for this. And it comes down to memories. It comes to the memories that you meet these players that are newscasters, professional ball players, doctors, lawyers, computers. I mean, the things that I see these young men turn into, it makes you proud. And you hope that they've gotten one little thing from Bethesda, something from you when they left out of here that they have learned. And that's why you do it.
So earlier tonight, we presented the Randy Schools Big Train Outstanding Service Award to Kristi Voigt. Tell us what Kristi's meant to this program.
Oh, she's the rock. She keeps us in line. She'll look at me and say, "Sally, we shouldn't do that." Or, "Hey, here's what we're dealing with, X player. Here's what I think." She has so much knowledge that is so powerful, and I trust her so much. The way she gets players back on the field, the way she communicates with the players trainers at school, or the coaches, she is just unbelievable. And it would not be the same without Kristi as our trainer. She would do it for free. That's just how dedicated and passionate and how much she loves Big Train baseball. But she is by far, she keeps us together. In fact, I think physically she keeps me together at times when my body's breaking down. But she was the best thing that has happened to us as manager. I have phenomenal coaches, phenomenal admin and staff, but she is just truly, man, she's one of a kind, no question.
A big part of the Big Train family for sure. Thanks, Sal. Sounds like Big Train fans can look forward to another championship season in 2021. Thanks, Sal.
Thanks, Bruce.
Big Train fans, I hope you've enjoyed the second of our 4 Sunday night holiday auction specials. Next Sunday, November 29th, starting at 7 o'clock right here on bigtrain.tv. We have a terrific panel to discuss the important question, women love baseball. How can baseball love them back? Well, Derek Jeter and the Miami Marlins just made a strong statement on that. Join us November 29th to hear more exciting ideas from Christine Brennan of USA Today, best-selling author Kitty Kelly, and Big Train's very own Peggy Engel. Please go online and check out this week's auction. This is your opportunity to pick up fabulous items and special experiences as holiday gifts for family and friends, often at less than full value prices, while helping us prepare for the 2021 season of Big Train Baseball at Povich Field. In addition to the featured items I mentioned at the start of the show, there are other great items: a game-worn Team Israel jersey, an Allen Iverson signed Reebok shoe, tour of historic Rockville Cemetery to visit Walter Johnson's grave and learn about Montgomery County history. 2014 Big Train team signed bat that includes World Series home run hitter Brandon Lau. A Zoom session with Montgomery County Council member Andrew Friedson. Volume 1, Number 1, 1953 Batman Adventures 3D comic book. A Bill Veck bobbleleg. Handyman service from Sandy Spring Builders, the folks who built Povich Field, and a collection of 20 Walter Johnson baseball cards. These are just to name a few. Bidding on all these items will close on Wednesday, November 25th at 10 o'clock. After this difficult year, we hope to bring the fun back to Shirley Povich Field in 2021. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a Dr. Fauci bobblehead night? And of course, we want to bring back the Iata Cicada at Povich Field t-shirt night from 2004. We need your financial support to make this happen, so please check out our auction and/or go to the donate button at www.bigtrain.org and contribute $25 or $50 to support affordable family fun right here near home. Thanks for watching tonight. Hope to see you next Sunday night, November 29th, when our special guests will discuss the topic, Women Love Baseball, How Can Baseball Love Them Back? I hope we can learn some things from our panelists as we seek to make Big Train Baseball at Shirley Povich Field one of the most welcoming and fan-friendly environments in all of baseball. Have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. Be strong, stay safe, Roll Train.